I'm Noel Murphy, and unfortunately I can't be in class tonight, but I did want to do a presentation. So before I start, if I could just check in with Sergio if the volume's okay and the picture's alright, mate. Thank you. I had a look at the list, and there was one name there that name of a therapy that really rang a bell with me, and I thought I knew a bit about, and that's Gestalt therapy. So I actually decided not to research that one because I thought I'd learn something about one of the others. Because I knew a lot of the words, but I really didn't know what the detail was behind them. So at random, I picked person-centered therapy. And the first thing I noticed that in my research was dealing with person-centered counselling. The name Carl Rogers came up all the time. And this is a photo of Carl. Carl Rogers is associated with everything to do with persons and counselling. It's claimed that he developed it. So with that in mind, I'll be making some references to him during it because he's just everywhere through the research. In fact, Rogers originated and developed client-centered counselling, which he later renamed to person-centered counselling, because he placed a very strong emphasis on the need for counsellors to think of those who seek their help as people, rather than impersonal entities with problems. He wrote a book in 1961 titled On Becoming a Person. And in that, Rogers emphasised what he believes were three necessary and sufficient quantities of the counselling relationship for effective outcomes. These were congruence, empathy, and unconditional positive regard. Now, he also believed that people had within themselves the ability to find their own solutions. So for a moment, I'm just going to give some detail on those three areas. So congruence in counselling is also called genuineness. Congruence is regarded as the most important attribute in counselling, according to Rogers. So this means that unlike the psychodynamic therapist who generally maintains a blank screen and reveals little of their own personality in therapy, the Rogerian is keen to allow the client to experience them as they really are. The therapist does not have a facade. And that means that the internal and external experiences are one and the same. In short, the therapist is authentic. Now, the next point that Rogers argues as a condition is unconditional positive regard. He believed that for people to grow and fulfill their potential, it is important that they're valued as themselves. This refers to the therapist's deep and genuine caring for the client. The therapist may not approve of some of the client's actions, but the therapist does approve of the client. In short, the therapist needs an attitude, I'll accept you as you are. The person-centered counsellor is thus careful to always maintain a positive attitude to the client, even when disgusted by the client's actions. And thirdly is empathy, and that's the ability to understand what the client is feeling. This refers to the therapist's ability to understand sensitively and accurately but not sympathetically, the client's experience and feelings in the here and now. An important part of the task of the person-centered counsellor is to follow precisely what the client is feeling and to communicate to them that the therapist understands what they are feeling. Now, if we have a look at our scenario with Daphne, Daphne shouts at her children when they make a mess. So, from the point of view of person-centered counselling, we believe that Daphne has the ability within herself to find her own solutions. B, we remain congruent with Daphne. We remain who we truly are. C, we care for Daphne. We may not approve of her shouting at her children, but we do approve of her. And finally, D, we make every attempt to understand what Daphne is feeling. We do this accurately and sensitively, but we do not become enmeshed. We let her know that we understand what she is feeling. I hope that brief presentation gives you some further insight to some of the information around person-centered counselling. My one disappointment is that I'm not here tonight to hear all of your presentations. Thank you. My references were this book and the internet web thingo. Cheers.